Hello, everyone. The NFL draft is going to be happening here in a couple of days on Thursday, and I am so excited for it. As an Atlanta Falcons fan, the draft is the only thing I've had to look forward to for the last 5 years, so I've heavily been invested in the draft because of that. Throughout the course of this draft period, I've made multiple mock drafts, and now it's time to submit my final mock draft of the 2024 NFL season. This mock draft will have trades, and I would like to point out that trades are always so difficult to predict. I think it's very, very hard to predict trades, especially mid-round trades. I think of last year when the Minnesota Vikings and the Detroit Lions made a trade in the middle of the draft. I thought that was pretty crazy. I'll try to do my hardest to make some trades. Who knows if I'm going to be right on them. But I can assure you, I think I'm going to be pretty accurate on these first 4 picks here. So for the first 4 picks in the NFL draft, first pick is Caleb Williams to the Chicago Bears. I think this is kind of a no-brainer. I think everyone knows this is happening. Caleb Williams is clearly the best quarterback in the class, probably the best player in the class. Bears already traded away Justin Fields. Caleb Williams is their guy. Washington at 2. I've seen a lot of back and forth between Drake May and Jayden Daniels. I am going to go with Drake May. You look at all the statistics, Drake May is pretty much better in everything than Jayden Daniels, except Jayden Daniels is better with his legs than Drake May. Drake May is more accurate than Jayden Daniels. Drake May is not afraid to stay in the pocket. Jayden Daniels, he sometimes has issues throwing the ball over the middle of the field. He sometimes has some accurate issues downfield. And that's not saying that Drake May doesn't have accuracy issues as well. Drake May also has accuracy issues. That's why he's not number 1. But I personally like Drake May more than Jayden Daniels. When you look at the hard statistics, that proves it as well. I watched a couple of videos where this one guy went over every single pass that every single quarterback went, and he made like a chart, like a grid showing how accurate they were throwing in what areas. Drake May just was so much better than Jayden Daniels in those areas. And if you're a quarterback, accuracy is a big thing. You can kind of teach accuracy, but accuracy is very important, and they both have really good arms. They both have a lot of good prospects. I could see why you would pick Jayden Daniels here. Just Drake May's always been quarterback 2 taken off the board. I think sometimes people have Jayden Daniels jumping him just because it looks better, it looks more appealing. I'm not going to do that. This is my final mock draft. I'm sticking with Drake May, which means that Jayden Daniels is going number 3 here to New England. All 3 of these teams need a quarterback, and I don't think a team's going to be willing to trade 3 to 4 first-round picks to trade up for a quarterback. New England's come out and said, hey, you want to trade up with us? Give us 3 first-round picks. Will a team like the Vikings really want to trade away 3 first-round picks for a quarterback and then have no future? Are the Vikings saying they're good enough right now that if they had Jayden Daniels, they would win? I don't think so. Their defense still sucks. New England, I think you're here at pick 3. You're thinking and hoping you're not going to be at pick 3 again. Pick your quarterback of the future. Pick literally the Heisman Trophy winner here at 3. You can either have him sit behind Brissett for a year or start him, and you're set on the position. It's the most important position in football. Draft quarterback. Cardinals at 4. Marvin Harrison Jr. I think everyone's been giving the Cardinals Marvin Harrison Jr., and I completely agree with it. The Cardinals have literally no wide receivers. No wide receivers. I think they have a 3rd-round pick. What is it? Michael Wilson? That's the only wide receiver I can name. Andy Isabella, gone. Hollywood Brown, they let walk. Traded DeAndre Hopkins, I think, last year. Yeah, because last year he played with Tennessee. The Cardinals don't have a wide receiver. They don't... Oh, and they traded away Rondale Moore, too, to the Falcons. The Cardinals have nobody at wide receiver. I've heard a lot that the Cardinals are willing to make a trade down, which I think could happen. But again, will the Minnesota Vikings give up 3 first-round picks to move to pick 4 for J.J. McCarthy? Are they really saying J.J. McCarthy is what we need to be a franchise-winning team? I don't know. I just don't think a team's going to be willing to give up 3 first-round picks for that. Last year, I'm pretty sure the Houston Texans moved from 11 to 3, and they gave up a first-round pick and a second-round pick, something along those lines. I just think when you have such a great wide receiver prospect in Marvin Harrison Jr., one of the best wide receiver prospects we've seen in the last 10 years, It's going to take a lot to get the Cardinals to get off of him, especially with no wide receiver help. I just don't see a team making that big of a trade. Here at pick 5, this is honestly where I realistically see the first trade down. I honestly could see a team trading down here from 5. I really, truly could. But for the final mock draft, I am going to give the Chargers Malik Nabers. The Chargers, again, like the Cardinals, just don't have any wide receiver help. Malik Nabers is such a good wide receiver. He's really good in the slot. He's a slot wide receiver, primarily at LSU. Chargers, I guess they have Quentin Johnson and Joshua Palmer who could play on the outside. But Malik Nabers in the slot, really good with his hands, really good at getting open. Malik Nabers is so good at getting open, and Justin Herbert, who's able to extend plays, is going to love Malik Nabers. I could, like I said, this is, I think, the first true trade down spot, but you rarely see trade into the top 5. Yes, it did happen last year, but I would say it's pretty rare that a team does make a trade. Maybe not pretty rare. Maybe, every 2 out of 5 drafts it happens? I don't know. I just don't see it happening this year. With the talent at the class being as high as it is, I don't think a team's going to be willing to give up enough to get a team to get off of the player that they're very high on. New York Giants at 6. That allows them to draft Rome Odunze. I have seen a lot about that the Giants really want to draft J.J. McCarthy, and they aren't happy with Daniel Jones. I'm not buying the J.J. McCarthy hype. I don't know if he's going to be a top 5 pick. I don't think he's going to be a top 5 pick. I don't see McCarthy being a top 10 pick. I don't. Maybe the Minnesota Vikings will trade up for him. Maybe. But I think if a team does take J.J. McCarthy, it's going to be the Vikings. I don't know. I'm not buying the J.J. McCarthy hype. I'll believe it when I see it. The New York Giants really need wide receiver help. They haven't really had a true number 1 wide receiver in so long, and they're constantly trying to fix it. Rome Odunze is wide receiver 2 on some scouts draft boards. I think the New York Giants are going to be ecstatic to have him. He's a true number 1 wide receiver for whoever's at quarterback for the Giants, whether that's Daniel Jones or Drew Lock. I think Rome Odunze is instantly going to come in and be their wide receiver 1 and just be a stud for whoever's throwing the ball to him. At pick 7, I am going to go with Joe Alt here. Joe Alt has become the census tackle 1 in the draft class, offensive lineman 1 really, and I really like him to go to the Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans are one of the worst offensive lines last year. They have actually made a lot of acquisitions to try to fix the team. They picked Tony Pollard up in free agency. They picked up Calvin Ridley. I know they got some good defensive guys too. They traded for Ladarius Sneed. Tennessee Titans are truly going all in on Will Levis, and if you're going all in on Will Levis, you need to give him protection. Joe Alt's the best tackle in the class, and you're lucky to get the best tackle of the class at pick 7. The Atlanta Falcons at pick 8, I am going to give them Dallas Turner. I've recently seen that Laiatu Latu has now become the betting favorite for who the Atlanta Falcons are going to pick at 8. And I could see this being a trade down spot if it wasn't the Atlanta Falcons. I've seen a lot of people putting this as a trade down spot. The Falcons don't trade down, at least not in the first round. When's the last time you've seen the Atlanta Falcons trade down in the first round? Every single year they're linked as a trade down team, and they never do it. They never trade down. I couldn't tell you when the last time the Atlanta Falcons traded down, at least in the first round. I'm sure they've traded down a lot in previous rounds, but in the first round, I honestly could not tell you the last time the Atlanta Falcons traded down in the first round. They just don't do it. They are a team that picks their guy, even if it's a little bit of a reach in the first round, and they'll stick with him. Last year, they drafted Bijan Robinson. Year before that, they drafted Drake London. Year before that, they drafted Kyle Pitts. All guys who at the time people said, well, maybe you could have gotten them a little bit later. Slight reaches. I wouldn't say big reaches, but I know a lot of people gave them shit for drafting Bijan Robinson, a running back, at pick 8. He did really good for the Falcons this year, so who knows? Falcons like to pick their guy. And with all the top wide receivers being off the board, I think their biggest need is edge rusher. The Atlanta Falcons have not done anything to address that in free agency at all, and I truly believe that that is because they already have their answer at pick 8. Why Dallas Turner? Because Dallas Turner The Falcons met with him at the Combine, and they had a top 30 scouting visit with him. They also did that with Jared Verse as well, but Laiatu Latu, they met with him at the Combine. They did not have a top 30 scouting visit with Laiatu Latu. They met with him at the Combine, and that's it. So I truly believe the Falcons met with him at the Combine and said, hey, we like Jared Verse or Dallas Turner better. Why am I picking Dallas Turner? Because Dallas Turner played in a 3-4 defense in Alabama, where Jared Verse played in a 4-3 defense. Dallas Turner is a more off-the-ball linebacker who can drop back into coverage. That's not what he specializes in, but he does have the ability to do that as well. I think he fits better in the Atlanta Falcons scheme. Dallas Turner has been linked to the Falcons since the beginning of the draft, and I'm not going to change anything here. Coming in at pick 9 is where I am going to have my first trade. I just recently found this out, but the Chicago Bears only have 4 picks in this entire draft. Pick 1, pick 9, and then they have a 3rd round pick and a 5th round pick. I have seen multiple reports saying that there is absolutely no way that the Bears don't trade out of this situation. And I think the Chicago Bears are definitely going to trade out of pick 9 here. It's just who wants to make that trade. So for me, this trade, I'm going to have it be the Cincinnati Bengals making the trade up with the Chicago Bears. The exact specifics of the trade don't matter. I think the Bengals would probably have to give up a 2nd round pick, 4th round pick, maybe a 3rd or 4th round pick next year as well. Or who knows, maybe the Bears want a ton of picks in this year's draft. The Bengals have a lot of late round picks, so it could be a 2nd, a couple of late round picks. But I'm going to have the Bengals jump all the way up to 9 to select Brock Bowers here at pick 9, jump in front of the Jets and maybe some other teams that could want Brock Bowers. Bengals don't have a tight end 1 really. When they made their Super Bowl run, they had CJ Uzomah, who was a really good help for Joe Burrow. Now you get Brock Bowers, who has been linked to the Bengals. Brock Bowers is kind of the outlier of this draft class. Truly, who knows where he's going to go. He is someone that's been speculated to go all the way as early as 5 to the Chargers. And I think his floor is probably 18 with the Bengals. He has such a wide range. Who really knows where he's going to go? I have the Bengals making the trade up. The Bears have been rumored to heavily want to trade down. Bengals, like I said, have all those late round picks. Brock Bowers just makes such a perfect sense to go to the Bengals. And now the New York Jets are pretty upset that they lost out on a guy that they probably were going to select at 10. But I don't think the New York Jets are too upset with that. I'm still going to give them Tuis Fuagu here. Why am I doing that over Fashanu? I know that's not how you say his last name. I forget how you say Fashanu's last name. But Fashanu, that ankle report has come out. I know some teams have some concerns about his ankle. I don't think it's the biggest concern in the world, but at pick 10, also Fashanu has flexibility. He can play at either tackle or he can play at guard. The Jets did just sign 2 tackles in offseason. They signed Tyron Smith on one side, and I think Greg Morgan on the other side. They signed someone else on the right tackle. So they signed 2 veteran tackles. So your plan with Fuagu could be have him play guard for his first season, because your tackles you only signed to 1-year deals. Have him play guard, learn how to play tackle, and then in year 2 you can either slide him over to tackle, or if he does really good at guard, just keep him at guard. You have an offensive lineman that you have flexibility with Tuis Fuagu. You need to give Aaron Rodgers protection. I think the Jets are going to be really happy with this pick. And then at pick 11, the Vikings didn't even need to trade up. They can still take J.J. McCarthy here at pick 10. I think J.J. McCarthy to the Vikings makes the most sense. If a quarterback is going to get taken here in the first round, I do think it will be J.J. McCarthy. Or the 4th quarterback off the board in the first round will be McCarthy. I know scouts really like him, and if you're the Minnesota Vikings, you need incentives to make Justin Jefferson want to stay. You don't have a quarterback right now there in Minnesota. What is it, Sam Darnold? Is that your starting quarterback? No way Justin Jefferson's going to want to stay with the Vikings without an actual quarterback. If you want to keep your franchise player in Justin Jefferson and someone who makes you a ton of money in jersey sales and gets actually tickets in the seats, you want to make Justin Jefferson happy. Get him a quarterback, get him J.J. McCarthy. I'm sure him and J.J. McCarthy will hit it off, and give them as much time as possible to develop a relationship with one another to help Justin Jefferson want to stay. The Vikings, they also still have TJ Hawkinson. They still have Jordan Addison. They still have a good offensive line. That Minnesota Vikings offense isn't bad. I think J.J. McCarthy is going into a great situation there, and I think he could really thrive in the Vikings offense if he is properly trained and fits well in that scheme. Which Broncos at 11, I think is a perfect spot for Laiatu Latu. I've done this in a couple of mock drafts now. I just think Laiatu Latu to the Broncos makes way too much sense. Broncos run a 3-4 scheme, and the Denver Broncos, I think, are a team that they're now in rebuild mode. They know they're going to be bad, so they have the ability to take a chance on a player like Laiatu Latu, who could be the best edge rusher in the class, but he does have those medical concerns. And he has only played ball for the last 2 years now. He took a 2-year leave of absence. The Broncos are a team that's able to take a chance on Laiatu, who is a high-risk, high-reward player, who, off the edge, could be another Bradley Chubb for them. I'm not saying he's going to get to that level, but he could be. The Broncos have always had a really damn good edge rusher. They didn't last year. Laiatu Latu to the Broncos makes way too much sense. Which in the Oakland Raiders at 13, I think they are ecstatic here because I was going to give him Fashanu, but I'm actually really torn between Fashanu and Terrion Arnold right now. I'm really torn. I think that this could be Fashanu, or I very easily could see this being Arnold, maybe even Quinyon Mitchell. The Raiders really need help at both corner and the tackle position. They currently don't have a right tackle. I'm actually really torn between this. I truly am really torn. This is a 50-50 toss-up for me. Corner and tackle are just such highly sought after positions. I am going to go with Terrion Arnold here. I truly thought about it, and the main reason I did that is because I do believe that the offensive line depth is better than the corner depth this year. This is an absolutely stacked offensive line class, so I do think the Raiders could get a better offensive lineman in the second round than a corner in the second round. That's why I'm going with Terrion Arnold here. Arnold or Quinyon Mitchell is going to be a CB1 off the board for me. I think Arnold is more of a man-to-man, is better in man-to-man, where Quinyon Mitchell's better in zone. At least last year at Bama, Terrion Arnold played a lot of man, Quinyon Mitchell played a lot of zone in Toledo. Raiders love to play man defense, love to play man-to-man, especially with their corners. Terrion Arnold feels like such a Raiders player to me. He's just got that Raiders grit. Love him in man-to-man. He did phenomenal this year in Bama, and I think the Raiders are going to be very happy to get him at pick 13, which means that the Saints are able to get Foley Ashano here at pick 14. Really good tackle, really good left tackle. He can instantly start for the Saints. Didn't allow a single sack this year at Penn State. Absolutely mauler in the pass game. Running game, not as good, but still really good. And I think the Saints are instantly going to be able to start him at left tackle. And that's going to be very interesting seeing Dallas Turner versus Fashanu go up against each other twice a year. And the Indianapolis Colts here at 15, I am going to give them Quinyon Mitchell out of Toledo. Indianapolis Colts really do need a corner. Their secondary was not that good. The Colts last year had a lot of games where they scored a lot of points, but their defense just couldn't help them. They couldn't help them. Colts do need linebacker, but I think this is too early for any of the linebackers to go off the board. Their defensive line's pretty solid with both Kwity Paye and DeForest Buckner. I think that the Colts are then going to pencil in on secondary. Quinyon Mitchell could easily be CB1 in this draft class, and I think at 15 is great value for him to go to the Indianapolis Colts. At pick 16 for the Seattle Seahawks, in a lot of my mock drafts, I've given them Byron Murphy. I think he'd do really good in the Seattle Seahawks defense. However, I have been seeing Troy Fautanu to the Seahawks a lot now. Fautanu is someone who is penciled in. He started at left tackle for Washington, but he has been profiled as a guard. Seattle Seahawks need a lot of help on the interior of the offensive line. Has some great tackles, absolutely great tackles, very young tackles. And if you're the Seattle Seahawks, why not draft Troy Fautanu and just have one of the best young offensive linemen in the NFL? I get the vision. Give Geno Smith as much time as possible to pass the ball. Give Kenneth Murray some help in the run game as well. Draft Fautanu, and that offense is looking incredibly scary. Incredibly scary with a really good offensive line. Great weapons in DK, Metcalf, and JSN. I see the vision in Seattle. I like Troy Fautanu, and also I get it. Washington and Seattle, keep him in state. I get why everyone's doing it. I still could see it being Byron Murphy, but I understand the vision in Troy Fautanu, and I'm all over it. The second trade I'm having in this mock draft, and like I said, trades are so hard to predict. So incredibly hard to predict. But the next trade I am having is I'm having the Buffalo Bills trading up to 17 in order to draft Brian Thomas Jr. here. Buffalo Bills need wide receiver help desperately. Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs, their two leading wide receivers last year, are both gone. They still have Dalton Kincaid, and they still have Dalton Knox, I think that's his name. Devin Knox, Dalton Knox. They also have Knox as well. So they have two pass-catching tight ends, but they need weapons. Brian Thomas Jr. is clearly, I think, wide receiver 4. I think wide receivers 1 through 3 are very clearly Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Remo Dunze. It's those 3 guys. Then it's Brian Thomas Jr. at 4. And then it's a bunch of guys from 5 to 15. I think Brian Thomas Jr. is clearly the 4th best wide receiver on the board. Did phenomenal at LSU with Malik Neighbors doing as good as he did as well. Both Brian Thomas Jr. and Malik Neighbors did great. It reminds me of when it was Ja'Marr Chase and Justin Jefferson on that LSU team with Joe Burrow. Very similar situation here where people are look at how good Ja'Marr Chase and Justin Jefferson was. And Justin Jefferson was the 4th wide receiver taken off the board. You could look at that and be like, this is a very similar situation where everyone is looking at Malik Neighbors and they knew that Brian Thomas Jr. was good. But in Buffalo with Josh Allen, I think he could be great. And the Buffalo Bills give up a couple of later round picks, 3rd round pick to get it done. They clearly get a wide receiver weapon for him. In Jacksonville, yes, they lost Calvin Ridley, but they still do have Christian Kirk. And they still do have, I know they have another good wide receiver as well there. I just like the move for Buffalo. And maybe they're scared that the Chicago Bears or some teams behind or in front of them could pick a wide receiver. Bears here at 18 now, they get Jared Verse, who's someone that they could have easily drafted at pick 9. If you're a Bears fan, you are ecstatic with how my final mock draft is going. You get Caleb Williams at 1, get to trade down, and you get Jared Verse, who could have easily been your pick at pick 9. This couldn't have worked out better for the Chicago Bears. Some of these teams above could have picked Jared Verse, just, Raiders didn't need him. Saints maybe could have. Colts maybe could have. But Jared Verse, he falls a little bit in my mock draft. Someone always falls, a player or two always falls, and it just happens to be Jared Verse. But he still gets to go to Chicago. He still gets to be on the other side of Montez Sweat. And what a phenomenal draft here for the Chicago Bears. Absolutely have killed it in this mock draft here. The next trade I'm making is just a little mini trade here. I'm just having the Dolphins move up 2 spots from 21 to 19 so that the Dolphins can draft Johnny Newton. The Dolphins, they lost out on Christian Wilkins in free agency. They need to replace him at D-tackle. I think Johnny Newton isn't going to be Christian Wilkins right away, but he has an undersized, great interior pass rusher at the D-tackle position. The Dolphins can have guys like Bradley Chubb on the outside, still rushing the quarterback, and now they can also have interior pressure as well with Johnny Newton. And they're going to pass him just in case the Steelers or maybe even the Rams wanted to take him for himself. Dolphins get their guy in Johnny Newton. They don't fool around. And then Steelers here at pick 20. I believe this could be a couple of things for the Steelers, but I know that they're going to want to protect Russell Wilson. And why not draft Amarius Mims? I really like that storyline. They got Amarius Mims on one side, and then they got Broderick Jones on the other. You solidify your offensive line. Steelers have been constantly needing offensive line help for a while now, and Amarius Mims and Broderick Jones would be a really fun storyline on the other side of each other, and I know the Steelers like storylines, drafting Joey Porter Jr. last year as well. I am going to give the Rams Byron Murphy II. The Rams are such a hard team to pick for, and if I let the Dolphins trade up with the Rams just to draft the same position, why would I do that? Well, Johnny Newton and Byron Murphy do different things. Johnny Newton is more of an interior pass rusher, where I believe that Byron Murphy is better at block shedding and eating up blocks. He can still blitz the quarterback as well, but they just have two different play styles. Byron Murphy is bigger than Johnny Newton. Johnny Newton has a smaller build for a D tackle, more like a Grady Jarrett build, where Byron Murphy is more like a Fletcher Cox kind of build. And I'm not comparing them to those two guys. I'm just saying build-wise, that's what they are. This could be so many things for the Rams. I could see this being Cooper DeJean or Nate Wiggins or an offensive tackle. I think Rams can go best player available. And looking at the board, I did think that was Byron Murphy. They do need interior pass help or just interior defensive line help now that Aaron Donald's gone. Byron Murphy isn't going to be able to fix that hole, but he is going to be able to help out the Rams. And now at 22, Eagles can go Cooper DeJean. I've done this a couple of times now. I absolutely just love the fit for the Eagles. They need both safety and corner help. They can literally put Cooper DeJean wherever they want to. He'd be such a great fit there for the Eagles. Don't need to say too much more. Yes, we all know that Cooper DeJean was hurt last year. It's made him drop a little bit, and he's gone to a team that was literally in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. And now the Minnesota Vikings here at pick 13. We already gave them J.J. McCarthy. They need defensive help bad. Their defense is not that good. And that's why I'm going to be giving them Nate Wiggins. Really good corner out of Clemson. Has great CB1 potential. In the run game, that's where he lacks a little bit. But he's great in man-to-man coverage. Very physical. Very good at reading the ball. Vikings need corner help bad. Very badly need corner help. I know they have Byron Murphy. That's about it. They just haven't really had a good corner since Xavier Rhodes was there. And now they get some help for Byron Murphy. They got 2 young corners on their left and right side. Which Dallas at 24, I think J.C. Latham has fallen right into their lap. And if you're Dallas, you're ecstatic about that. He can instantly start at left tackle for you. Replace Tyrone Smith. You get younger at a very key, important position for the Cowboys. And for the Cowboys, who are in a very weird spot right now, just solidify your left tackle spot. Don't worry too much about it. And the Green Bay Packers here at 25, this could be a lot of things for them. Graham Barton has kind of risen up draft boards, and I get it. And I am going to give Graham Barton here to the Packers. He's someone that can play both at guard and at tackle. You know, another offensive lineman that can do that. A lot of the offensiveness line can do that. Very flexible, strong offensive line class. It's not the sexy pick for the Packers, but they've done so many picks on defense this year from the years in the past. Help protect Jordan Love, give him more time, help Josh Jacobs now. And they got Josh Jacobs. Help give Josh Jacobs some more help in the running game as well. It never hurts to bolster your offensive line. And Tampa Bay at 26. I truly do think this is going to be Chop Robinson here. He is probably the 4th best edge rusher in this draft class. I do know that Darius Robinson has been rising up a lot of boards as well. I know that Darius Robinson was even invited to the draft itself. He was one of only, I think, 13 players that got invited. I think the NFL truly thinks he's going to be a first-round pick, which, if the NFL thinks that, then it's probably going to happen. I think last year, Will Levis was the only guy who didn't get drafted that was in the draft room. Maybe there's a second guy as well. We'll see what happens with Darius Robinson. I do think he's a late first-round pick. Could fall to the second. He's either going to be an late first, early second kind of guy. And now the Arizona Cardinals here at 27. I am going to give the Arizona Cardinals Kool-Aid McKinstry. This feels like the pick that the Cardinals are going to do, honestly. The Arizona Cardinals, they drafted Marvin Harrison Jr. at pick 4. They need corner help badly. And Kool-Aid McKinstry didn't have a bad year last year, just wasn't targeted as much. He had such a good year 2 years ago. The team just didn't target him this year. And because he wasn't targeted a lot, he wasn't able to show off his skills. So yes, he did have a drop in stats, but Kool-Aid McKinstry still played phenomenal. Just he happens to be in a draft class with a bunch of great corners. A lot of great corners in this class. A lot of great offensive linemen in this class. A lot of great wide receivers in this class. This is a really, really good draft class. And because of that, Kool-Aid McKinstry falls to the late first round, and he's going to be going to Arizona. We're at Jacksonville now at 28. Jacksonville at 28, I am going to give them Xavier Worthy. If there were a team to draft based on that speed, I think it would be the Jacksonville Jaguars. They already have Christian Kirk, who's a really good go up and get the ball wide receiver. I'm pretty sure. Oh yeah, the Jaguars, they also picked up Gabe Davis. I knew they had another wide receiver. They picked up Gabe Davis as well. They have 2 go up and get the ball type of wide receivers. Christian Kirk, really good with the ball in the air. Same with Gabe Davis. Draft your guy someone with a speed. A really good slot wide receiver with speed. Xavier Worthy, I'm not saying he is Calvin Ridley, but he could instantly come in and replace that Calvin Ridley's role with great speed. He can develop in there in Jacksonville under Trevor Lawrence. Give him another weapon if Trevor Lawrence truly is the guy there. I could very easily, if Xavier Worthy sneaks into the first round, and what I've predicted to play out does play out with Jacksonville trading down, I could very easily see them taking Xavier Worthy here late in the first round. At pick 29 for the Detroit Lions, I am going to give them Darius Robinson out of Missouri. Like I said, a lot of scouts seem to love him, and Dan Campbell, he drafts players based off personality and skill. Darius Robinson is a freak on the edge out of Missouri. Big guy, fast guy, very athletic, and I think he's going to get along with Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions very well. Very well. And he's going to be on the opposite side of Aiden Hutchinson, and that is going to be a really, really scary defensive line. They also got that defensive tackle, DJ Reader, as well. DJ Reader, Darius Robinson, and Aiden Hutchinson. Absolutely scary defensive line for the Detroit Lions there. And at pick 30, the Ravens honestly could do a lot of things. I think that they're just going to go best player available. And to me, that's Adonai Mitchell. Maybe Adonai Mitchell can drop out of the first round, but I just don't see it. Really good wide receiver out of Texas, and I think the Ravens just are a team that constantly needs wide receiver help. Yes, they keep on drafting guys. They got Zay Flowers last year, who did really good, but he did cost them in that game against Kansas City. Just constantly give dependable weapons for Lamar Jackson. That defense there is really damn good. Just wide receiver seems like the biggest position of need for him, and at pick 30, I'm going to give the Ravens Adonai Mitchell, which my final trade for the mock draft is I'm going to have the Raiders trade with the 49ers back into the first round to select Michael Penix Jr. I've heard reports that the Raiders really want to trade up for a quarterback. I don't think they're going to do it in the first, or at least with their first pick at pick 12, because I truly do think that the first 3 picks will be Caleb Williams, Drake May, and Jaden Daniels. And the Raiders, they already have Gardner Minshew. They already have AOC. But if you're thinking that one of those 2 guys aren't the guy, who knows with Gardner Minshew, he's getting older. AOC looked meh last year. Go trade back in the first round and get Michael Penix Jr. You won't probably have to trade up too much because you're trading from 44 to 31, so it's just 13 slots. You get that 5th-year option of Michael Penix Jr., so you can have him sit for a year, learn your system, start either Gardner Minshew or AOC. You know what? If AOC ends up doing well, then great. You can either just trade him away or trade away Michael Penix Jr. You have options here, and you probably won't have to trade too much to get him. Draft him now in the first round, because then you won't have to wait another day. You won't have to wait another day, because if he doesn't go in the first round here and then day 2 happens, teams can start making trades. Teams have that extra night to talk and get things done. You just get it out of the way now. You get that 5th-year option. You don't have to worry about another team trading up for the guy that you like in Michael Penix Jr. Just get him now. Get him the first round. Give a 3rd or 4th round pick to get him. And Chiefs at 32. Chiefs, this is definitely going to be a wide receiver here without a shadow of a doubt. And I think that this could be a number of wide receivers. I've heard that Jalen Polk has been loved by scouts recently, and that he very easily could go into the first round. This will be a wide receiver. Just which wide receiver do you want to give the Chiefs here? I think Keon Coleman makes a lot of sense for the Chiefs, and I think Polk does as well. This will either be Polk or Keon Coleman for me. I really do think this could be Polk, but I will go with Keon Coleman. He's just a big jump ball wide receiver. And just the Chiefs need wide receiver help, as we know. Give Patrick Mahomes some more help. And anyways, this has been my mock draft. This is my final mock draft. I'm sure that this isn't how it's going to play out. There's always differences. I remember last year, no one had Devin Witherspoon going at 5 to the Seahawks, and he did. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what trades are made. But I'm pretty happy with this mock draft. Let me know in your comments down below if I drafted the player that your team wanted me to draft. I honestly think I did really good here. I'm looking at this draft, and I don't really know what there's to be upset about. Probably that trade at 19 and 21 with the Dolphins and the Rams is probably the only thing that I'm looking at it being like, that's pretty questionable. I just wanted to get another trade in there, to be honest. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. As always, leave comments down below on if you agree or disagree with my mock draft, and peace.